Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Mal Smith. I am the Workday Practice Manager here in Kainos. I'd like to thank you all for joining us on today's webinar in which we are discussing automated testing of Workday implementations. I'm pleased to say that we have over 300 people joining us for today's presentation from 140 companies, so thank you all very much for attending. I also want to thank you for your survey answers. This has been very useful for us in shaping today's webinar. I'd like to start by introducing you to our other speakers today. I'm delighted to welcome Doug Timpe, Director of Technology QA at Workday. I also want to introduce Dara McConville, one of our Senior Workday Consultants here with me in Kainos, and also Will Murray, our Testing Manager, who will be chairing the question and answer session. Just moving on to today's agenda, I will start off with a brief overview of Kainos, followed by some background on the origins of our automated testing solution. Doug will then explain how Workday use automation extensively within their own organization to test new features and regression test existing functionality. Dara will then take over, and the majority of the webinar will be Dara providing a demonstration and overview of our testing tool. Once that is completed, I will then summarize the key features of our testing tool and outline our product roadmap. Finally, we will leave at least 10 minutes at the end for the Q&A session. So as mentioned earlier, please use the chat facility to send through any questions you may have as we progress through the webinar. We will be monitoring these and endeavour to answer as many as possible. Obviously, with so many people on the call today, it is unlikely we will go through all the questions, but any that we don't get to answer today, we will follow up with you afterwards. So for those of you who don't know Kainos, we are a European-based technology company founded way back in 1986. Our headquarters are in Belfast, Northern Ireland, but we also have offices in Dublin, London, and Gdansk in Poland. We now have 400 staff made up primarily of IT consultants, functional experts, and project managers. Our core business is about developing or configuring technology solutions for our clients, and of course testing is one of the core services we provide. Our Workday practice is one of the most exciting areas of our business, and we now have 50 people working as part of our team, providing a comprehensive suite of Workday services. Of particular relevance is our involvement with Workday's QA team. Given our strong history in test automation, we have formed a partnership with Workday in which a team of our engineers have been seconded to work as part of Doug's product automation team. This has gone very well to date, and there's a commitment on both sides to continue this well into the future. So just moving on to explain some background to the origins of our testing tool. Firstly, we identified that there's a real need. Workday has currently 400 customers, and this number is growing rapidly. All of these customers will have to test their Workday implementations, and because everyone is on the same version of the product, testing the same business processes and reports, etc., we felt that a Workday-specific testing tool would be immensely beneficial in reducing the amount of effort clients have to spend on testing. Having identified this need, Kainos were uniquely placed to develop the tool for a number of reasons. Firstly, we have over 25 years of IT testing experience and 15 in test automation. Secondly, we are a Workday implementation partner, so we have an in-depth understanding of the Workday product and the testing processes that Workday clients undertake as part of project implementation and the Workday update process. Finally, and most importantly, we are Workday's primary QA testing partner. This gives us a unique insight into the product and Workday's tools and methodologies for automated testing. The other key advantage of being directly involved with the Workday test team is that we get early visibility of any changes Workday are introducing in their next release, allowing us to keep our tool in sync. So as a result, we have developed a testing tool whose specific purpose is to help automate the testing of Workday configurations or implementations. We have put considerable effort into the development of the tool, but please note it is still in development and not all of the features are fully functional. Before I ask Dara, however, to demonstrate the tool, I'm going to ask Doug to spend a few minutes explaining how the Workday QA team use test automation in their organization. Doug, thank you.
Thanks, Mal. Welcome, everyone. My name is Doug Timpe, and I am the Director of Technology QA at Workday. Some of you may know me from the Workday Rising presentation that I gave back in November about automated testing. And so some of these slides may look familiar, but for those who haven't seen them, I really just wanted to give a background about the quality assurance group at Workday, how we conduct our testing, and how automation plays a role. Really to set the stage for what Kainos will show you for the rest of the presentation. So a little bit of background about the QA group at Workday. We are an independent group from the engineering organization, so we ensure proper checks and balances to ensure the quality of the product is at the highest level. We hire and train subject matter experts in all areas of the product. So every area of our product functionality is covered by experts who do a combination of manual and automated testing with a preference for automated testing where possible. This testing includes all aspects of functionality, security, regression, performance, with the goal of making sure that you feel comfortable with the product as you implement and go live. Another key part of automation at Workday is that we hold ourselves to a very high standard. We've accumulated a large repository of automated tests over the years, and we need to make sure those tests pass all the time for all updates, all patches. They must pass 100% every time we release something to customers. So again, this should give you confidence about the product we're releasing. We have a big focus on automation. And at the bottom of the page here, you'll see a few of the tools that we use internally, just to give you a picture of the different types of automated testing we do. The items with a star, the one at the top and the one at the bottom, are really internal-only tools for Workday. They're embedded into the developer IDE. But the other ones are of particular interest because they are, some of them open source, some of them generally available. In particular, Selenium is what we're going to focus on today. And we do use Selenium quite extensively at Workday to test our UI client and to test certain aspects of business functionality. And we'll get a little bit more into Selenium in a second here. So why Selenium? Well, Workday's been using Selenium for testing for over 2 years now. We have a very robust framework that we've developed internally, and it works quite well with the way Workday has implemented the Adobe Flex client for our UI. Some other tools are not so good at this, but we found that Selenium is fairly robust, and we've been using it for quite a while, so we're very confident. It's also a great tool for designing data-driven tests, meaning that you can separate data from logic. You can, as you'll see later in this webinar, load data in from a spreadsheet in order to dynamically run through particular test cases, which makes maintenance and refactoring much easier as you're designing test cases. We also use fairly standard test frameworks such as TestNG. We use Java to implement our test cases. So these are commonly known, commonly understood tools in the industry. And as I mentioned, we have been using this internally for quite a while, and it has also been exposed to customers over the past year, as we feel that it's appropriate for some customers who might want to use this tool as well for doing some of your business process, security, integration, and report testing. Through my experience with talking to customers, of course, every customer has unique needs and desires in terms of testing, and some of that is driven by the implementation needs. Actually, quite a number of customers focus on testing during their implementation phase, with a focus on business processes, self-service transactions, security, integrations, reports. These are really the core of your business, and so these are things that we can expect all of you as customers to want to test as you're implementing and before you go live. Of course, testing takes time, takes resources, and so anything that can be done to make that process more efficient, I'm sure will be welcome, which is really the point of this conversation today, and I think you'll be excited about some of the things you'll see later in the presentation. So some things to consider in terms of Selenium. first, you need to consider as a customer whether you want to take on the task of doing automated testing yourselves, or whether you're comfortable continuing with manual testing. There are some advantages, of course, to doing automated testing, and so please think about whether it's right for you, especially as you watch the rest of the webinar today. There's some exciting opportunities to improve the efficiency of the testing process. Most customers do find a need to test their configurations to give them confidence before going live with their implementation. And some customers also like to test between updates, although in my experience we've seen that confidence improves as customers become more mature and the need for testing update to update decreases over time. Something else to think about with test automation is the time to develop and also the time to maintain those tests over time. Tests can be written to be flexible and more easily refactored, and it's all part of good test design, but there is a cost there. So while automated testing is great, there is still some effort required to make sure it runs on an ongoing basis. As of today, Selenium is enabled by default on all deployment tenants. So what that means is anyone with a deployment tenant can start using Selenium today. No additional process or approvals required, which is really great. It allows you as customers to put the power into your own hands and start using this as you want. There's a lot of discussion about Adobe Flex versus HTML5, and so I want to just briefly cover this. Selenium is designed to work with both Flex and HTML5. Currently, we are still on a Flex architecture, and so Selenium works very well with Flex, and it's something to keep in mind as we transition to HTML5. The test will need to be refactored, but the good news is that Selenium works very well on HTML5 as well. There are some additional resources if you want to find more details about automated testing for Workday. Please go out to the community. There is a group called Testing Tools, and I invite everyone to join that group. There's some good detail about what has been done so far for automated testing. There is a white paper out there, and there's also lots of discussion between customers, questions, answers, challenges, solutions. It's a really good place to start if you have questions about Selenium. And before I hand it back over to Darragh, I do want to mention Kainos and also reinforce the statements that Mal made earlier. Kainos has been working with us as an internal testing partner for our QA group for several releases now. So they're really in a unique position. They understand the product, they understand automation, they understand Selenium and how it works with Workday. And as you'll see later in this webinar, they've developed some pretty exciting solutions that can help with automated testing, which will take some of the burden off you as customers. So with that, I will hand it back over to Darragh.
Hello guys, just checking that everyone can hear me. Will I unclick that mute? Excellent. Thank you, Doug. Hello everyone. My name is Dara McConville, and I'm a Workday Senior Consultant. I'm a Workday Senior Consultant, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to provide you with an overview and demonstration of our testing tool. As we're still actively developing our testing tool, we have yet to finalize on its official name. We've internally codenamed this project SMART, and I will refer to our tool as SMART for the remainder of the presentation. In a nutshell, SMART is a cloud-based automated testing tool for Workday implementations, specifically designed for the business user. Based on our experience of implementing Workday, we have found that the areas clients spend most time testing are business processes, integrations, payroll, and reports. These findings have been ratified by the responses to the survey issued as part of this webinar. Our initial focus in the development of SMART has been on the automation of business processes and integration testing. I will demonstrate today our business process testing functionality and provide a brief overview of our integration testing approach. So without further ado, I would like to switch over to the SMART tool for a live demonstration. As I share my desktop, you should now see the SMART tool in front of you. SMART provides a simple, intuitive interface for testing your Workday implementations. Starting in the top right corner of the SMART landing screen, we can see that our customer in this case is the familiar Global Modern Services. I am logged in as Darragh McConville, who happens to be a HR administrator within GMS. In the top left corner, you can see that SMART is integrating with the Kainos GMS Workday tenant. This is one of the unique features of SMART in that it integrates with deployment tenants using a combination of Workday's user interface and programmable interface. The four core functional areas are represented as four tabs below: business processes, integrations, payroll, and reports. The grid below currently displays a list of business processes that are retrieved from the Kainos GMS tenant. SMART dynamically extracts the list of business processes from deployment tenants and presents those in order of most commonly executed. This will allow testing efforts to focus on the most used and hence most important business processes. Looking down the grid, we can see that the Manage Goals business process is listed twice. In our tenant, we have two definitions of the Manage Goals business process, which are distinguished by the organization column. This simply means that a different version of the business process exists within the GMS and Wealth of Knowledge organizations. SMART provides you with the ability to execute any business process definition. Looking at the right-hand side, you can see there are three simple actions that a user can perform for each business process: load data, execute, and results. The Load Data button allows you to create a new data set or upload an existing data set that has been previously created. The Execute button parses the data and executes the business process in real time on the underlying deployment tenant. The Results button displays the test summary. I will now show you a live demonstration of an automated test of the job requisition business process for Global Modern Services. I will perform the test using the three simple steps of load data, execute, and results. I have a pre-prepared data set for the job requisition process, which I can show you now. We have a number of prepared Excel template files that we use to upload data for the business process. The format of the templates is in keeping with the iLoad template provided by Workday. The data in the spreadsheet indicates the following: that we're looking to create a job requisition in the legal department, that the location for this requisition will be in Dallas, and that it's for a pre-existing junior counsel position. The recruiting start date is today, and it's a standard full-time position. For clarity and simplicity, I've simply included one solitary row in this spreadsheet. However, there is no limit to the volume of data that can be provided. I can now upload this input data to the Smart tool. Selecting Load Data, Upload File, and I simply select the data that I have just shown you. As you can see, the data has been successfully loaded, as indicated by this green tick, and we are now permitted to perform the execute operation. If I click the execute, this now is invoking the business process called job requisition for GMS using the data we provided on the underlying deployment tenant. Smart allows you to perform further tests while the current test is executing. So for example, I could execute report safety incident for GMS, and that would execute concurrently. While we are waiting for the create requisition test to complete, I can show you the results from automated tests that we performed previously for the termination business process. I've just skipped to the next page in our business process table. As you can see, a green tick is rendered on the results button, which indicates that all input test cases successfully completed for that business process. This is an important indicator because it allows you to focus on only those areas that have failures, saving you precious time. We're currently extending this functionality so that the tick not only represents successful completion of the business process, but that it also confirms that the business process has affected the data of the underlying data in the tenant as required. So for example, in the case of termination, this would mean verifying that those employees entered as input data were successfully removed from the specified organizations in the tenant. Clicking on the results button displays a list of all test cases and the results. So as you can see, we've executed this on the 23rd of January for 11 employees that have been successfully terminated. What's interesting is that we've performed the termination using 2 different user accounts, and again, across a number of organizations. On the termination business process, if I select the Load Data option and choose Create New File, Smart will dynamically interpret the master process and sub-process data requirements and build the Excel template accordingly. The template that is generated is automatically opened in Excel, as you can see before me. The spreadsheet templates we have pre-prepared for today's demo are color-coded to indicate non-dependent fields, which are marked in green, and dependent fields, which require data to be inserted from the results of other business process executions, and these are indicated in orange. So for example, you would be unable to perform a terminate without the dependent employee name being included, and that employee name would be derived from either a successful hire operation or a successful move operation. Now, if we navigate back, the job requisition automated test should have completed, and as the green tick indicates that successful completion has occurred. Clicking on the results button displays the successful creation. So as you have seen, the junior counsel position that was located in Dallas has been successfully created by Pedro Santiago. And as you can see, the date and timestamp is of the last minute or last couple of minutes. I'd like to now just quickly switch to the Workday tenant. And I can execute the My Open Job Requisitions report. And as I'm logged in as Logan McNeil, we should see all of the open job requisitions. If I use the default parameter, and if I scroll to the bottom, we can see the junior counsel requisition that we've just created with a start date of today. Clicking on this, I can navigate through to the business process history. Selecting the business process event, I can then click on the Process tab, And as we can see nice and succinctly, there were 3 simple steps in the job requisition business process that we have just executed. Again, the date and timestamp is of the last few minutes. So this was a simple example of a real-time automated test for job requisition. One of the powerful features of Workday is that it allows you to configure and change your business processes as and when you choose. With traditional test scripts, this would require time and effort to maintain and amend to reflect those changes to the business processes. The ingenuity of Smart means that this is a non-issue due to its inbuilt flexibility that reads business process definitions in real time. I will now make a real-time change to the job requisition business process for Global Modern Services. If I select the business process in the tenant, again logged in as Logan McNeil, and we're interested in the GMS definition of the business process. If I select the action menu, apologies, we seem to have an internet issue here. I'll just retry. Business process and select edit. And I want to make the change effective immediately, so we leave the effective date for today. So I'd like to click the little green plus arrow here, and as many of you will be familiar, I'm going to add a simple additional step to the business process. And if we select, say, an approval, if I scroll to the right, I will then enter the finance executive role or group. If I hit OK, that business process has now successfully saved, effective immediately. I think we're having a little delay on the screen, guys, so I'll just apologize for that. So if I just move back then to the Smart application, hopefully that's a little bit clearer. What I can do now is I can now load a new input file that will test the job requisition business process again. Clicking the Execute button, Smart has now launched the new job requisition business process with the data specified. Smart is interpreting the business process definition change in real time and performing the necessary additional step that we have just entered. While we are waiting for this second requisition to complete, I would like to emphasize one particular feature of Smart regarding the creation of spreadsheet templates. Clicking on the drop-down arrow to the left of the job requisition business process displays the sub-process. This sub-process is create position. This could be any number of sub-processes based on the configuration options that Workday provides. So this really is representative of the business process hierarchy in our deployment tenant. Workday permits you to add a number of sub-processes within the master business process. And Smart is designed to dynamically identify these sub-processes. Smart maintains a template library of input data requirements for each business process. Once the business process list has been retrieved, Smart dynamically knits together the spreadsheet templates of the master process and all constituent sub-processes to form the final spreadsheet the business user must fill in order for that business process to successfully complete. Now, I appreciate that was a bit of a mouthful, so the best thing to do is for me just to show you the directory structure to help you visualize what I'm trying to describe. Here we have a list of our business process templates. And if we switch to the template directory, I can browse down and select the job requisition folder. Within job requisition, we have 3 spreadsheet templates. We have the master template, which contains the data requirements for job requisition only. We have the sub-process template, which contains the data requirements for the create position. And finally, what we call the GMS, or the organization-specific template, which is a combination of each, or combination of both. So just very quickly, I can open this, and you can see this is the master template data for job requisition. The data only pertains to the job requisition. This is the create position sub-process. We can see here this is the create position details. And finally, I can show you the GMS job requisition spreadsheet. And as you can see, scrolling to the left, it contains a combination of the master process and the sub-process. So a slightly more complex example is around the hire process, which I can now navigate to using the Smart user interface. Clicking on the down arrow beside the hire process reveals the 7 sub-processes that are contained in the hire definition for the Global Modern Services Organization on the Kainos GMS deployment tenant. Again, browsing back to the templates directory and selecting the hire folder, we can see the template hierarchy and the file system. Sorry guys, there's a bit of a screen delay here, so apologies if I sound like I'm jumping ahead. I'll just give it some time just to refresh. So again, Smart dynamically knits these master and sub-process templates together based on the business process definition. And again, I can show you the master hire template. As we can see, it just contains the core data for the hire process. Again, the proposed compensation sub-process contains only that data for the proposed compensation activity. So that is repeated for all of those sub-processes. And again, as I mentioned, these are dynamically created. The eagle-eyed observers among you will have noticed that there were 7 sub-processes listed under hire on the Smart user interface, but only 5 in our template directory. The reason for this is because Smart is intelligent enough to work out only those sub-processes that require data to be entered for upload. If there is no additional input data required by a sub-process, in this case there are 2, Smart will not create the sub-process template. So I'd like to go back now and check, has our second job requisition test completed? And again, I'll just give a couple of seconds for the screen to catch up. So, as we can see, another green tick has appeared beside job requisition. Clicking on the results button, a list of all test cases and the results are displayed. So the second test was to create a senior deputy counsel job requisition in the legal department, and it is successfully completed by user Pedro Santiago. I will now again eventually switch to the Workday tenant when my screen catches up. So I'm just switching to the Workday tenant. I'm just cognizant of the screen latency here. Okay, and I'd like to rerun the My Open Job Requisitions report. Again, as Logan McNeil. And again, we will scroll down to the bottom. And as we see, the senior deputy counsel position that we have created, that we've created in the legal department. Clicking on the senior deputy counsel requisition, I can again repeat the process. Click on the business process event. Click on the process tab. And as you can see, there are now 4 steps in the business process that Smart has executed. The third step being the step that we just added, and that went to the finance executive role or group, and the individual in question was Elizabeth Johnson. So this was another simple example of a very powerful feature where the need to maintain and change test scripts in accordance with business process changes has been eliminated. Another key feature of Smart is the ability to bulk execute a number of business processes in a single test run. So for example, as a tester, you may wish to perform a complete end-to-end test in the employee life cycle. For example, create applicant, create requisition and position, hire employee, and terminate employee. SMART will allow you to load data for each of these business processes, sequence the execution, and then use the select tool to execute a batch or a group of business processes. I will now return to my slide deck, where I'm going to talk about a slightly more complex example. I would now like to walk through an example of the automation of the hire business process that we have executed previously. This is the hire business process for Global Modern Services. It is 9 steps with 5 conditions. It has up to 6 different groups, each with a number of people assigned to these roles. It has 7 sub-processes. And I would like to zoom in on the proposed compensation sub-process. Again, this is a 4-step business process in itself, which involves 3 different groups, including manager and manager's manager. I would now like to introduce a scenario that demonstrates these different roles in action across different applicants. This is the org chart for the HR Services Department, in which there is a senior HR representative position unfilled. This is the org chart for the legal department, in which there is a corporate counsel position unfilled. And this is the org chart for the finance and administration department, in which there are no open positions. The applicants we are going to hire into the HR Services Department and Legal Department are Winnie Reich and Trudy Worlds, respectively. In this scenario, we will be attempting to hire a 3rd applicant, Claudio Luce, into a financial director position within finance and administration organization, which, as we have just seen, is not an open position. This 3rd applicant has been added deliberately to allow me to demonstrate how SMART performs error handling and identification. Here we can see a screenshot of when we loaded the data for the hire business process. Note the sub-business processes that are listed under hire, as each of these sub-processes have requisite data fields which were included in the spreadsheet being uploaded. Following the successful upload of the data for the 3 applicants, the execute step was performed. I will now walk you through some of the activities that occurred in the background during the execute operation for the 3 applicants. So these are a number of screenshots that we've taken from our back-end testing engine, and I'll walk you through what SMART has actually done on the tenant. So the image in the bottom left corner indicates that SMART logged in as Pedro Santiago, who SMART then uses to select the position of Senior HR Representative. Following the selection of the position to fill, the next step in the process was assigned to Caitlin Jones as the proposed compensation sub-process was initiated. SMART then logged out and logged back in as Caitlin Jones to perform the first step in the proposed compensation business process. As Caitlin Jones, SMART then selects the compensation package for Winnie Reich. Following the selection of the compensation package, the next step in the process was assigned to the manager, Jake Lee. SMART then logged out and logged back in as Jake Lee to perform the first approval step in the proposed compensation sub-process. This process continued as SMART retrieved the manager's manager from Workday and repeated the dynamic logging in and logging out to successfully complete the business process. Here we can see the entire business process history. And if we look more closely at the rightmost column, we can see the number of auto login and logout events that SMART performed. As the manager's manager and manager roles are different for each applicant. The individuals in those roles are different for both Winnie and Trudy. The hiring of Winnie into HR services involved logging in and out as Jake Lee and Steve Morgan. The hiring of Trudy into the legal department involved logging in and out as John Chen and Teresa Serrano. SMART is designed specifically so that these individuals are identified in real time to perform the necessary steps. I will now revert back to SMART to show you the results of the hire process execution in our tool. I'll just reshare my desktop. Again, paging through the table of business processes, we can see the hire business process has a red X beside its results button. This indicates that one or more applicants failed to hire, which, as we have discussed, was by design. Clicking on the results button, we can see the detail of each hire and the failure with Claudio Luce. Just let my screen catch up again, guys. So as you can see, the top two subjects were successful, the third was unsuccessful. SMART dynamically captures a screenshot of any errors returned on the Workday tenant. And as you can see, this is perfectly plausible and easy to interpret that the financial director position was not open within the finance and administration organization. I would like to finish with our report summary screen, which again, I'll just give my screen a couple of seconds to catch up. So the report summary screen was located on the bottom left corner of our landing screen. If I select all organizations, and I select a date range for the last 10 days, and the three business processes I would like to report on are hire, terminate, and our first one from today, job requisition. Clicking OK, we are initially presented with a, again, I'll give my screen a couple of seconds, guys. We are initially presented with a pass-fail summary for all test runs meeting the specified criteria. On the right-hand side, we can break the pass-fail metrics down by business process to identify those business processes which are potentially problematic. And finally, the test coverage chart, which is currently being developed, displays the percentage of steps within each business process covered by the provided test data. Scrolling down, we can see the base data presented in the charts above. At the top of the grid, we can see the two job requisition tests that we have just performed. We can see the two successful and one unsuccessful hire. And again, we have the ability to click on the detail again, just giving my screen a chance to catch up. And we can see clearly within the Claudio Luce test event which steps failed. And we also have the screenshot that we can click on for reference. Reverting back to the test summary screen, at the bottom, we can see the 11 successful terminations that I previously discussed. So we feel that the real power of this aspect of SMART is being able to chart test execution results across Workday updates or across configuration changes to help identify trends and to increase accuracy and confidence in your testing strategy. So I'll just revert back now to my slide deck. Before I hand back to Malachy, I would like to provide you with a short overview of our integration testing approach. And although these features are still in development, they will form an integral part of our July product launch. As Malachy has mentioned, Kainos has 25 long years experience with complex systems integration. We've been implementing Workday since version 16, and in that time we have gained valuable experience both in how Workday integrations are built and tested. We understand the importance of building integrations in accordance with Workday best practice, and as we have seen that when integrations are built in this way, automated testing becomes easier. In a typical Workday implementation project, the mix of integrations we have seen is that around half are EIBs, around a third are pre-packaged Cloud Connects, and the remainder are the more complex studio integrations. The first need we see is for the ability for users to prepare integration tests and to repeatedly launch their integrations from a single user interface, removing the need to manually log in, find the integration system, set launch parameters, and wait for results. The second need we see is the ability for users to be able to identify immediately which of their integrations failed to successfully execute at a glance from a single user interface. The third need we see is to provide the ability to compare and contrast data results from those integrations that have successfully completed across different integration test runs to identify differences in their execution outputs or inputs. The result of these test runs will then be used to inform users of failures, again allowing them to focus their intentions on what is not working as opposed to wasting time focusing on what is working. We see this as being especially useful when performing tests aligned with Workday updates. We intend to release integration testing functionality aligned with the number of implementations of each type of integration. We will be focusing on EIBs, then Cloud Connect, and finally Studio integrations. But most importantly, this will focus on both outbound and inbound integrations. I'd like just to hand back now to Malachy, who's going to discuss the key features and the roadmap.
Thanks, Darragh. That was excellent, especially given the latency issues that you had to deal with there. Now, there was quite a lot of functionality described today, so I think it would be useful to take a few minutes just to summarize the core attributes of our smart testing tool. Firstly, specific. The smart tool is specifically designed to automate the testing of Workday configurations, thus removing the need for Workday clients to write scripts for each of their business processes. Flexible. As Darragh demonstrated, the tool reads the business process definitions at runtime, thus eliminating the need to maintain scripts as you add additional steps to your business processes. Comprehensive. We only illustrated a few of the business processes today, but the tool will cater for all of the key HCM business processes. Similarly, it will cater for the automation for all the various types of integration. Repeatable. Once your test data has been set up during your project implementation, the same test can be run again and again by simply refreshing your tenant. Also, once you're live with your Workday deployment, the same scripts can be used to verify your configuration each time a new version of Workday is released. Intelligent. As you saw today, the tool has some sophisticated intelligence built into it. Firstly, as we automate through the business process, we're using real-time information returned from Workday to determine the appropriate user to log in as to complete the next steps in the process. These steps are all followed in a recursive manner until the business process has either been completed or an error returned. We also demonstrated how, when generating the data file templates for a business process, the tool calculates what data fields are required for both the master process and any sub-processes, thus simplifying the initial setup process. Intuitive. We've designed the tool to be simple and straightforward to use. Given that the tool is accessed through your web browser, users can simply move back and forth between Workday and the tool by just toggling between different browser windows. Insightful. The report summary screen provides some useful metrics of the test success rate and the test coverage. We plan to extend this capability with additional reports as we move towards our product launch. And finally, up to date. Through our Workday testing partnership, we get early visibility of forthcoming changes to the Workday product, allowing us always to keep our testing tool in sync with the latest version of Workday. There are a number of business benefits associated with the Smart tool, but we have distilled it down into 3 major points. Firstly, it will increase your confidence in your Workday implementation, both in terms of going live and during the Workday update process. Secondly, it will free up very valuable business and IT resources. And finally, it will provide significant savings both in terms of the time and cost associated with Workday deployments. So moving on to the product roadmap, we plan to launch our Smart tool in July this year in time for Workday 20. As Dara mentioned, this will focus on the HCM business processes and integrations. In November, we will add Workday payroll automation and reports. And moving into next year, our plan is to cover the entire Workday product suite. So I hope some of you out there are asking, how do we sign up or get involved? If so, please don't hesitate to contact us, and myself or one of the team will get back to you as soon as possible with details on the commercial offering. Also to point out, we're looking for a limited number of clients to work with us over the next few months as part of an early adopter program, as we fine-tune our Smart tool prior to its official launch in July. These clients will benefit from gaining early access to the functionality we demonstrated today. Finally, for Workday engagement managers or any Workday implementation partners on today's webinar, if you feel any of your clients would benefit from using the tool, please again, don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm now going to hand over to Will Murray, our test product manager, who will chair the question and answer session. Unfortunately, due to the latency problems we had today, we're a little bit short in time, but we'll try to get through as many questions as possible. Any questions we don't get to answer today, we will follow up with you over the coming days. Thanks very much.
Hello. Sorry about that, guys. Thank you, Mal, and also Doug, for your presentations. As Mal said earlier, we don't have much time, so I'd like to get straight to the questions and to give Mal and Dara a short break. Doug, I might address the first question to you. Doug, what are the prerequisites for using Selenium with Workday tenants?
Sure, I can answer that. So there is a lot of detail out on the community, but and I certainly encourage everyone to take a look at that. But essentially, it is enabled on all deployment tenants, as I mentioned previously. So as long as you have a deployment tenant, you can go ahead and start using it today. There is a starter kit and a white paper out there in the community if you'd like to start playing around with it yourselves. But if you are interested in the Kainos Smart tool, it's really a matter of contacting Kainos, and as long as you have a deployment tenant, you should be good to go. Some people may be wondering whether it can work on sandbox or production. The answer at this time is no, and there's some technical reasons for that. But really, the deployment tenant, otherwise known as an implementation tenant to some of you, is a tenant that has a very well-defined process for tenant refreshes, and that goes hand in hand with automated testing processes. As you can imagine, some of these tests will change data, and you may want to refresh to sort of a base state from time to time. So deployment tenants are really well suited for that. In addition, all implementing Workday customers have a deployment tenant already. So it's there, it's ready to use, and customers who are interested in extending their testing update to update have the option of opting into to a deployment tenant beyond their go-live date.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Next question. I'll answer this one myself. So are we planning on covering all business processes with this SMART tool? We're currently focusing on the HCM business processes with ongoing development as part of the Early Adapter program that Mal mentioned earlier. And we will have all the core business processes and sub-processes developed for our launch. And obviously we will continue to extend this automation suite to cover other Workday modules such as time tracking, expenses, and financials at a further date. Mal, I might ask you a question, one which has come in, and it's, does this tool also perform load and performance testing?
Just unmuting myself there. No, it doesn't, Will, and this is a key point. The SMART tool's sole purpose is to help automate the manual steps involved with testing each client's specific Workday configuration. Workday takes full responsibility for testing the Workday product, and performance and load testing is a key part of this. Doug, maybe you might want to add a few words to that as well.
Yeah, sure. Just to confirm what you said, Selenium as a tool, and it is an open source tool that's widely used outside of Workday, is really not designed for performance testing. And so using Selenium as kind of the deriving framework for the SMART tool, it's focused on business functionality, confirming, verifying your configurations. Workday does a fair amount of performance testing internally, and so that's kind of a separate topic. But we do test performance along with all the other types of testing. So it's kind of a separate topic from the SMART tool, which is really about functionality.
Great. Thanks, Doug and Mal. I have time just for one more question. Apologies again, but we will get back to you with answers to anything that has been asked. Dara, if I can finish with you, and there have been some questions on how this tool can be installed.
Sure thing, Will. The product will be delivered via software as a service. Almost identical to the delivery model that Workday uses, and each client availing of the service will have their own dedicated tenant.
Okay, I think Will has just handled the ball back to me. So I just want to finish up, folks, by saying thanks very much for attending today's session. Hope you got a lot out of it. Apologies again for the latency issues during the demonstration, and just to confirm my details there on the screen. If anyone would like to contact us about anything you saw today, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And once again, thanks all very much for attending. Thank you.